And off we go. Good Vach, everyone. As you've noticed, I have turned off the waiting room feature here. So when you come in straight. Then I don't have to sort of like let you in as well. There were some problems with Zoom in the beginning, whereas people, would just get into meetings and whatever, all kinds of strange stuff. So this is why the waiting room feature was put on, but I don't think anybody's actually going to come here. And if they do, maybe we can do them some good. All right. So, good Woch, everyone. Tonight we counted 42 days, which is 6 weeks to the Omer. So we can practically see Har Sinai. Interesting. In this week's Parsha, it talks about Shemitah. There's the famous Rashi that says, Ma inyan Shemitah to Har Sinai. What it says, this is the thing that this is what Hashem said in Shemitah Har Sinai. So Rashi says, Ma inyan Shemitah to Har Sinai. Why is Shemitah specifically mentioned? Har Sinai specifically mentioned of all the mitzvahs we're told in Har Sinai. Why single out Shemitah? So I heard a nice illumination from David Wirtzman. He said this: in order to come to Har Sinai, in order to come to this freedom of Torah, freedom of Kabbalah Torah, to have the kind of personality that can really receive, digest, and process, and live the Torah. The first thing that you need is Shemitah. Shemitah in Hebrew means to drop. Just let go. You're holding on to something and you just let go. That's Shemitah. Falls down. We are tied up to so many different inyanim, not necessarily overtly. We can hold a grudge. We can have various little inyanim that are basically that tying knots in our nefesh. In fact, when you take a look at your history, you'll realize that the different challenges, traumas, whatever, that you had gone through in your life have sort of made a knot. Sometimes, you get a knot in your tzitzis or in your shoelace. And it's very difficult to take it apart because it becomes very hard. And the same thing is these kind of traumas and grudges and preconceived ideas, whatever these, it's sort of it ties a knot in our nefesh, in our soul. What it does is that a certain part of us remains stuck at that particular point of our development, of our history. So if you have, let's say, something that was traumatic that happened to you when you were 3 years old. So a certain part of you remains 3 years old, doesn't matter how old you are. And then something happened to you 10 years old, and something happened to you when you were 17, and something happened to you, whatever age it was, a certain part of you remains that age forever. And not in a good way. In other words, it's holding you back. In order to come to Shemitah, in order to come to Shavuos, what you have to do Shemitah. Shemitah means the land remains fallow. You let go of the land. You let go of the chayvus. You let go of money that is owed to you. Shabbos is a major Shemitah. It's like every single week you just let go of this worldly inyanim. You just let go. Shemitah is a great prerequisite to get into Har Sinai. So is the Baal Shem Tov. So let's go ahead and start our Motzei Shabbos, Sichos Haran, with some Isis from Baal Shem Tov. I think we mentioned last week that before the Baal Shem Tov passed away, he said, I'm taking off all my hasagas. I am in the remis. I just believe. And it said that before he passed, he was mislabish with such a great year, the entire bed shook under him. I don't know if he was slavish in that year or that year was revealed. I'm not sure. And before he passed away, he's out of any just let me stay away from being a Baal Gaiva. Chas v'chalila, he should not leave this world with Gaiva in his mind. Now, I wish I knew this nigger. I don't know what it is. Before he started, he said that for people to play, to sing the Nigun Yisrael's Lachamim Rabim, that Rav Mechel Zlotcheva, big tzaddik, has composed. And when they finished playing it, the Baal Shem Tov said, I promise you that throughout the generations, anytime in any place, anybody will sing the Nigun Yisrael's Lachamim in Tshuva and Yisrael's, wherever it is that I will be, I will hear it. Because the malachim that brings news and messages to neshamas, and I will join the singing and awaken great rachamim on those, those singers who are Balei Tshuva. That's a very interesting story. In the time of Baal Shem Tov, there was a tzaddik who was called Eliezer Lieber from Berditchev. Now, this Eliezer Lieber, the great Lieber was called. He lived in the time of Baal Shem Tov. He was one of the great Mekubalim. And Lieber had a great spiritual influence. He lived alone, separate from all the people at home. And he was steeped all the time in learning Kabbalah. And the Jews in Berditchev, relate to him as a Kaddish, as a saint. And the Baal Shem Tov used to say about him, it's very, Da tzadikim that azochet to Gilu Eliyahu. But I believe it's Faket. Eliyahu Novi is the one who is Zecher to Gilu for Liba. So you can imagine the stature. So Eliezer Lieber from Berditchev, he was used to that. His grandfather, the Megala Mukas, Neta Shapir from Krakow, was one important Kabbalim in his time. He's famous for his Sefer Megala Mukas. After he passed away, he would come to a Bliber, the Grese Bliber from Berditchev, and he'd come along with him. Once it happens that the Megala Mukas, for a few days, he didn't come to learn with him. And Bliber, was very sorry for that. And he sent his son, Rebbe Chiel, to the town of Krakow, to the Tzion, the holy Tzion of the Rav Megala Mukas, and asked him why it has been a few days since he last came. So he said, because the Baal Shem Tov HaKodesh has passed away, and is covered, they closed the Yeshiva Shalmala for 30 days. That's why I didn't have time to come every night the way he was used to. Then there's, of course, a story about the gravesite of Baal Shem HaKodesh. Yeah, we know that, the tzaddikus, the Rebbetzin Mas Odl, the famous daughter of Baal Shem Tov HaKodesh, people ask Rabbeinu why his father held his daughter Odl in such great esteem. So Rabbeinu said, because she all the time walked with tremendous urge to give the Kadosh Baruch Hu nachas ruach. She was always busy trying to find out, how can I possibly give Hashem some pleasure? What can I do? Her heart was burning all the time like that. That's why she was so important. So she had 2 sons and 1 daughter. And her 2 sons were, of course, Baruch of Mezhibos, famous Rebbe Baruch. And the second was Rebbe Ephraim from Sadlikin, the one who wrote the Sefer Degel Machne Ephraim, the great Hasidic leaders of all time, both of them. And 1 daughter by the name of Fagan. And last Fagan, she had a son. His name was Rebbe Stor. And they nicknamed him Rebbe Yisrael Nes. Rebbe Yisrael, the dead one. And what happened was as follows. Masfega, who was the granddaughter of the Baal Shem Tov, was, she was the daughter of the tzaddikus Mas'od. After she married, she didn't have any children. So she asked her grandfather, the Baal Shem Tov, I understand he was alive at that time, he should promise her a ben Zachar. And he promised her. And after the Baal Shem Tov passed away, she had a son. And they call him Yisrael, after his grandfather, the Baal Shem Tov, when the child was 2 years old, he became sick and he died. So what did his mother do? She took the dead child on her hands and she placed him upon the grave of her grandfather, Baal Shem Tov HaKodesh. And she said this language, says, Zaidi, is this the son that you promised me? And she left the dead son on the grave of the Baal Shem Tov. She went away. Afterwards, a few people came to daven on the tzion of the Baal Shem Tov, and they saw a live child sitting on the Baal Shem Tov crying. They didn't know whose child it was. Where did he come from? When they came to town, they took this child with them, and they told everybody this. They found the child until his mother found out of it, and she came She took the child alive and healthy as Hashem. After this happened, the Baal Shem Tov came in a dream to Masvega. I think it was in his dream. And he told her, if you were to come alone on to my graveside, about the Kodesh Baruch Hu would have helped you also. You caused me a great deal of trouble because the neshama of this child already got mixed amongst thousands and hundreds of thousands of neshamas. It was big trouble to find a different neshama because of it, instead of it. And I found a neshama of a deceased person, and I put it back to the body of the child. And the face of Rabbi Salomés looked like a face of somebody. They were all pale, and they looked like the face of a dead person. That's why they called him Rabbi Salomés. This was the story of the Baal Shem Tov, Sichos Haran, for tonight, for this week, for this month, the Chvod Chag Shavuos. Okay, so let's share the screen, take a look at the Sicha of this week. We are holding by Sicha and Gimel. We just make the type a little bigger, the text a little bigger, so then you can see it better. Sicha and Gimel. The Tzadikim that reveal and say, Techef Mashem. They reveal and say everything that they see immediately. The Elo Tzadikim, and these Tzadikim that see this, their neshama comes from the letters Mem, Nun, Tzadik, Pei, Chaf. We'll explain that in a minute. V'zeh, in the Gemara, they said Mem, Nun, Tzadik, Pei, Chaf, Tzoifim, Amorim. In the Aleph base, we have all the letters, they have one form. Except these 5 letters, Mem, Nun, Tzadik, Pei, and Chaf, that take a different form when they are in the middle of the word and when they are in the end of the word. There's a middle mem, an end mem, and a middle nun, an end nun, with tzadik and with pei and with chaf. So the Gemara says, Mantzapach, these letters, Tzofim Amorim, the Nevi'im, they are the ones who reveal this inyan. So those that are from the Bechina of Mantzapach, which is the Bechina of Tzimtzum, as it is known, whatever it is they see and they gaze, they let it out. They let it on. They say it. They can't hold it by them. But that's tzaddikim, that's tzaddikim that come from a higher place. So this is, they come from a notion of expansion. They can hold in without letting on everything that they see. This, of course, is an incredibly important sicha that is incredibly relevant to our time, especially after what has happened in Amiram. So, first of all, to understand a little bit what is Indian of Mansapach, these 5 letters that take different shape when they are the middle of the letter of the word and when they are at the end of the word. What's the big spritz? Why these 5 letters would represent a constriction, whereas every other letter that has just one form, they represent expansion. One of the the biggest pillar in creation, and Rabbeinu says that the human mind cannot possibly comprehend it, is the inyan of how is it possible that different separate actions, details, emanate from the simple one. Kadosh Baruch Hu is one, not in the way that you count one. Because when you count one, that is already like in between infinity, everything. And now you're counting one means you're ready to start counting. One, when you count the digit 1, you have to understand that in order for multiplicity to exist, ribui to exist, it's one of the central issues of relationships. There's the union of, in order for 2 to exist, everyone has to constrict his own existence, as it were, to give room to the other person. You can't just take over everything because you're choking everybody. You may be able to sustain this existence, this reality for a while, but that's not called a relationship. A relationship can only exist if you hold yourself back and you let the other person have his own being, his or her own opinions, his or her own feelings. People many times don't allow anybody else to have their own voice for fear of relinquishing control. It can come from your shemayim. You want your family to be from. And so, as a result from that, you don't let anyone move. Guess what? By the time that people get to the stage where they move, whether you will like it or not, they will move. And the move, by and large, will be away from you. Because people need to breathe. In order for a relationship to exist and to flourish, you don't control people, even children. What you do is you give them something that they can identify with. If a child You caught your child lying. Okay? If you're trying to control them through anger, tell them they're liars, they're this, they're that, so you know. So guess what? While they're with you, they'll do whatever it is that it takes in order to fool you. And behind your back, they'll do whatever it is they want to do. But if you tell your child, listen, in our house, you lied, but in our house, we don't lie. If that is actually the truth, that you don't lie, what it does, instead of enforcing yourself on your child, what you're doing is you're giving that child, and it can be a child, it can be your wife, it can be your husband, it can be anybody. You're giving them something that positive they can identify with. We don't lie. That's a great thing. Then they will do it out of their own volition. But the point is that you have to, in order for multiplicity to exist, you have to be mitzamtzem yourself to give somebody else room. So the first constriction, which is, it's a constriction and it's not yet a constriction, is one. On one hand, it's the beginning of counting, which means it's a constriction. On the other hand, it's still only one. It resembles infinity. Infinity is also one. It's not the same kind of echad. This is a private echad. This is a general echad, but it still belongs into the realm of echad, the realm of expansion. Two is already constriction, because we explained that in order for two to exist, one has to end before the second one can be added. One can take up the entire room. Two, one has to end before the second one can begin. Mansepach are double letters. They have one form in the middle of the word, and they have a different form at the end of the word. Of the word. I keep on saying word. That is the reason why Mansepach represents the tzimtzum. So Rabbeinu says that this is the shirish of neshamas, and tzaddikim that come from that particular neshamas. These tzaddikim are from an inyan of tzimtzum. They come from a world of tzimtzum. They cannot hold within them the information that they have. They cannot contain it. We have gone through, obviously this is the understatement of the century, an incredibly traumatic event. On Lag BaOmer. And this has raised in the mind of many people, some even say it out loud, some don't, this confusion and this doubt and suffering. What is this? Reb Shem Bar Yochai. The time Shem Bar Yochai, Lag BaOmer was the day that the Talmidim of Rebbe Akiva stopped dying. In the middle of the celebration of life, Baal Shem Tov, people pass away. How can this be? How can such a thing exist? And they have kashas from the tzaddik. Some say it, some don't say it, some sort of like cloak the kashas that they have by saying, Reb Shimon Bar Yochai doesn't want us, he kicked us out, the second year in a row, he kicked us out, and all kinds of things like that. Obviously, everybody needs to check himself and see what it is that he or she does that needs to be corrected. You cannot be maki al chet on somebody else's chest. This is all your fault or her fault or their fault. You can only look at yourself. It's bevada a thing that needs to be done. The Rambam said that everything that happens, any calamity law later that happens, is a wake-up call from the Kodesh Baruch Hu for people to do soul searching. And people that say that this is just a coincidence, this is just, they're looking for what's the reason, who's responsible, whatever, even though it's obviously important. Because when you see the number of people that come there every single year, the miracle is that it didn't happen before. This year, only 100,000 people came. Usually 500,000 people come. And it hasn't happened before. So it's not that, the normal thing is for nothing to happen, and lo and behold, this is what happened. The thing is, the miracle is that every year nothing happens. But a deeper thing here is that we need to understand that Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, of all people, even though he was the one that revealed more than any tzaddik before him. In fact, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai represents the beginning of Torah Baal Peh. Until the time of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, which is the time of the destruction of Beis HaMikdash, it was the era of the Nevi'im. It was the era of the Bible. It was the era of Torah Shebiksav. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai marks the beginning of Torah Baal Peh, from which we live to Torah Baal Peh from that time until today. Shimon Bar Yochai got a reshus, got a permission of Kodesh Baruch Hu to reveal whatever he revealed. The entire Indian of Shimon Bar Yochai is amelioration and sweetening of judgments. And Shimon Bar Yochai is kula rachamim. What exactly this is, or approximately that is, we can only learn different kind of aspects of what happened. The fact that we need to learn from this, and each one has to do soul searching, is only one aspect of what happened. Rabbeinu says in Terpe Gimel in Likutei Moharan Beis that when there is not enough halo esman, there's not enough, there's a constant relationship between the Kodesh Baruch Hu and the Shekhinah, and the Shekhinah has to elevate what you call man to Zerampi, to Kodesh Baruch Hu, and then you get mind different from above. This is the unification of Kuchabi Hu Shmintei. And when there is a certain event, there is a big event, impending event coming, about to come, but there's a lack of, of urging, of longing from below, which is Allah Isman, Lo Aleinu, what happens is that Jewish neshamas pass away. And the Jewish neshamas that pass away, they go up to the Shekhinah, and the Shekhinah elevates these neshamas. And this is the Allah Isman. And the Shekhinah covers the blood of all the people that were killed. So the Sitra Achra doesn't have any kind of yanika, any kind of sucking from these neshamas, because the Sitra Achra, that's what it's looking for. These are inyonim that we have absolutely no hasavan. We saw that happen in the inauguration of the Mishkan. Throughout the generations, we already mentioned that. That's another different aspect of what went on. We don't understand. When does this need to happen? When does this need to happen? We have no idea. But what we do know is the same thing when the Mishkan was inaugurated and the Shamas had to be taken from this world. The same thing, Bezrat Hashem, there is something very important, very special, like the Mishkan, that is supposed to come. And these neshamas were Allah Isman for that. There's a great cover that's supposed to come. What it is this instead of this cover, or is this a preparation of this cover? I have no idea. If anybody tells them they have they're permanent tzaddikim that come from Ansapach, because they cannot hold it in, or they just don't know and they just imagine it. But one thing is for sure. Shimon Bar Yochai is a Gilgul of Moshe Rabbeinu, who himself is a Gilgul of Hevel, the good side of Hevel. Hevel had two sides. The positive side of Hevel, it was totally clean, came to Moshe Rabbeinu, it came to Shimon Bar Yochai, and so he is from the highest source there is. But Shimon Bar Yochai does not reveal anything that he was not given permission to reveal. When we learn in Torah Chaf Aleph that the shleimus of the ears is emunas chachamim, and the readiness to hear a rebuke, to hear admonishment, so we can correct ourselves. This is what we need to do. But by Moshe Rabbeinu, the shleimus of the ears, the perfection of the sense of hearing, is expressed in the pasuk Bechol Beisi Ne'emanu. He is faithful in my entire household. HaKadosh Baruch Hu says about Moshe Rabbeinu. Since Moshe Rabbeinu reveals, and obviously by ready transfer of Shem Bar Yochai, he only reveals, he knows everything. Moshe Rabbeinu knew everything. Shem Bar Yochai knows everything. And he could do everything. So could Moshe Rabbeinu, obviously. But he only reveals that which HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants him to reveal. No more, no less. The Shleimus HaOznayim Shem Bar Yochai is that the fact that we don't know, the fact that the Shimon, the quote unquote, the reputation of Shem Bar Yochai seem to have, like, obviously nobody will ever say it, because they know it's not true, and sad because they're embarrassed, that they feel that way. But they feel as if the reputation of Shem Chai took a beating. That's what we do. How can it be Shem Chai in the time of his Simcha? We saw it already happen 110 years ago when 11 people died. And that was at the time of the giants, Rav Shmuel Salant and Rav Shmuel Diskin, Zer Tzadikim Evracha, huge giants of the Eretz Yisrael. When that happened, they made a takana, they made a mechitza between the men and the women. People are crying, that the separation between men and women in Meron could be better. It could be better, and it should be better. It's not a popular thing to say. People don't want to hear it. Same thing is with tznius b'chlal. We live in an age where, as Rabbeinu says, there's in the last third that Rabbeinu said while he was alive, he said, I wonder if there's anybody in our day and age that can rebuke and give anybody and admonish him. But that obviously does not cover a situation when people do averos. So if you carve somebody, tell them where you are and what's, the story with you, wake up and get to Kodesh Baruch Hu. You need that, you need that voice. For the Teshach, as Rabbeinu says, Torah Ches, the second Chelek of Sichos Haran. But nevertheless, a lack of tznius is problematic. There's certain things, that there's certain things we say, so there's certain things we don't say. We're supposed to say. We're supposed to say in such a way that is accepted what we're supposed to say. We're supposed to say that. But nevertheless, Rav Shimon Bar Yochai, to come back to this particular Nekuda, comes from the tzaddikim whose source is from above the Matzah, is above the construction. So Shimon Bar Yochai can hold the secret of why that happened, with all the confusion that everybody feels about it, because everybody now needs to make some kind of cheshbon nefesh. Where am I, as far as my emunah is concerned? And realize, kedayu Rab Shimon l'smoch alav b'shas adchak. It almost sounds like a taunt vis-a-vis what happened. Dchak is, this is what happened. The doichak, this is what killed the people. It says, Kedai Reb Shimon l'smoch alav b'shas adchak. Yes. Kedai Reb Shimon is worthy to rely on, that he is totally rachamim. That he's full of rachamim for every single nefesh b'Yisrael. And only the Kodesh Baruch Hu and the tzaddikim, they know why this particular thing is unmitigated rachamim. It's our mind cannot comprehend the rachamim of Kodesh Baruch Hu. There's no way that we can understand but we believe. And this is the thing that we need to take from him. As Rav Nachman Chadad said throughout the night, I already mentioned it, when he didn't know what happens to his son. And he said that the entire night he just begged, I don't know how long, whatever it is, he just asked the Kodesh Baruch Hu, please, just don't take the Emunah away from me. Just don't take the Emunah away from me. This is what we need to do more than anything. We have kashas, we have questions. As we said before, you're allowed to ask all the questions as long as the end of the question is a question mark and not an exclamation mark. Huh. No, huh. Why? How could it be? That's legitimate. We don't know is an acceptable answer. In fact, it's the befitting answer. But just to ask Kodesh Baruch Hu, just don't take the Emunah away from me. B'chlal, b'frat. Not to Emunah Tzadikim, not to Emunah Kodesh Baruch Hu. And even when things that are less pleasant happen to me, or people that I love, not to you, not to anyone. Please don't take the Emunah away from me. Emunah that what? That everything comes from you. B, you are a loving Father that loves us to no end. A love that we cannot possibly put into our minds. C, the can do anything. He can make it happen or not happen. And D, the Kodesh Baruch Hu feels whatever it is that you feel. And the Kodesh Baruch Hu wants you to feel the best and the greatest and the healthiest. So, if a Kadosh Baruch, everything comes from Kadosh Baruch Hu. Kadosh Baruch Hu can do anything. Kadosh Baruch Hu feels your tsar, and he wants to alleviate it, and he can alleviate it, and he still doesn't. That means that what's happening is exactly the best thing for you. Nobody wants to alleviate your tsar more than Kadosh Baruch Hu. He feels it. It's a whole tzara from tsar. So what you do is you say thank you. You understand why. You do understand why. The Monoshalim just don't take them away from me. And thank you, and thank you, and thank you, and thank you for everything. It's a talk that could go on for a long time. But just remember, we are holding by this dot in point in time, which is our lifespan. This is just a dot in the beginning of a road that continues forever. The main thing is Olam Haba. The main thing is not here. It's when a person forgets that there is Olam Haba. And not only that there is Olam Haba, but that's the name of the game. This world, with everything that happens, is just the first dot in the beginning of the road. Nevertheless, it's a world where we have to beg for Rachamim. You should feel great. You should be B'ezrat Hashem, have Shefa Parnasim, and live long, and feel well, and everything good should only be with you. And you should ask Kodesh Baruch Hu. If it's difficult for you, tell no, it's difficult for me. What can I do? There's certain people who can sustain, distress and suffering better. Some people can carry it. I can't. So ask Kodesh Baruch Hu. I mean, you're going to a doctor to alleviate problems. Why should we go to Hakadosh Baruch Hu? The Vadai. But never, never, ever stop at saying thank you to Hakadosh Baruch Hu and asking Hakadosh Baruch Hu to never, ever take the money away from you. They have all the response in the world on you. And give you everything that you're looking for and everything that your loved ones are looking for and need. Okay, here we go. This is we are on the runway. We're about to take off. The last 9 days of the Sphira, Wednesdays or Rosh Chodesh. Sunday night is Shavuos, right? So B'ezrat Hashem, I hope to see you all on Monday night, B'ezrat Hashem. And should all have a great week, a healthy week, gebenched week. A week that is filled with simcha and kol tov.